Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the official EstablisherRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. I hope this show finds you safe and sound in your respective quarantines. As always, I'm joined by fellow ETR co-founder Evan Silva. Evan, how you holding up?
Good, man. Good. I hear that you watched Contagion. Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
It's a documentary.
Yeah, it's like a glance into the future, you know?
Evan has fled Chicago after watching Contagion because in the movie Contagion, they actually wall off Chicago. You can't leave. You can't go to Wisconsin. You can't get over the bridges. You can't do anything. And there starts to have violent crime. And it gets really, really bad in Chicago. So Evan has fled. He's in St. Louis. Looks like he's in his childhood bedroom with a St. Louis Cardinals poster in the background. Is that true, Evan?
Yeah, just hoarding firearms in case I'm attacked. Also, interesting developments in the DFS athletics world with Jonathan Bales.
Yeah.
You believe that he can do more than what was it, 2,400 push-ups in 12 hours?
Yeah. So let me tell you guys what's going on. Bales has done some feats of strength before. We've done a couple 1 mile races. Me against him. We did bench press adjusted for ability and weight. We did pull-ups. We've done a bunch of stuff. We did box jumps. And Bales has, outside of the running stuff, Bales has shown superhuman strength, like beyond what anybody could even imagine. So the bet this time, this is not between me and him. This is between him and Draft Sheet. Can Bales do 2,400 push-ups in 12 hours? This will be going down on Thursday. Hope to have a live stream of it. But yeah, I mean, I think he can do it. I've taken a bunch of action that people think he can't do it. It's a really good market. Like, it's really like close to 50-50. I feel like half the people think there's no way and half the people think he can. I'm pretty confident that he can, but I certainly don't know for sure. And there's always a chance of injury in anything like this. I was talking to him earlier today and I was like, God, how bad would it be if like you have to go to some corona infested hospital because you're pissing blood or something like that from doing too many push-ups for a prop bet? You know, that would be a disaster. And he was just all heart, he's like, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. So, it should be fun on Thursday. I don't know. What do you think? 2,400 push-ups in 12 hours?
I don't even care what the number is. If I get the opportunity to bet against Draft Sheet and on Jonathan Bales, I mean, that's plus EV for a lifetime. So, yeah, I'm taking that bet anytime. I know that, like push-ups is like really heavily reliant on your shoulders. Most people's shoulders are weak, but Bales has monster shoulders. I just think he's built to do like a ton of push-ups. But I mean, it's not going to be easy. Have you boiled it down to like, how many does he have to do per minute? I think it's like 3 per minute.
Something like that, yeah. And he has a strategy I'm not going to reveal here, but he has a strategy for not getting burnt out and when to do them and intervals and rest time and sets. And, he'll be on top of the exact right science to do it, which I also think will help. He's not just like a lot of these people on Twitter just think he's going to go out there and just try to like bang off 2,400, just like without a plan. Like, that's obviously
didn't he do that in the mile? Like he sprinted the first. What did he do?
In the mile, the first time we ran the mile, he did sprint the first lap to try to get me tired. The second time he tried to go super slow to try to get me to save energy to try to get me to go slow also. So because he knew that he would be drawing dead. But either way, in the mile, like at some point you're gonna have to go hard and then you're just gassed. So mile is, I don't ever want to do that again. That was so bad. But anyways, it is somewhat relevant that we talk about that because on today's show, we are going to talk about futures market, which is, these days you can bet on ping pong, you can bet on how many push-ups Bales can do, and you can bet on the NFL futures market. So there's not a lot to bet on right now. That is one of them. I do want to say though, before we get into the futures market, we are less than 1 month away from the NFL draft, Evan. NFL draft is actually going down. NFL draft will be going down April 23rd to 25th. Our next 3 podcasts will be dedicated to the NFL draft. We'll talk about all the prospects. We'll do some mock drafts. We'll talk about the props, etc. We also will have plenty of NFL draft articles on the site, all free. Evan's mock drafts, his top players by position, thresholds. Pat Kerrane is doing a bunch of research-based stuff to help us evaluate the prospects. So there's a ton coming on the NFL draft hope you guys will stay tuned for that. But today I want to mainly talk about the NFL futures market. And then at the end, we'll also hit on some of this, a little bit left of free agency news and notes. But I wanted to say one thing about the futures market is that while the individual markets have a ton of juice, like for example, DraftKings odds to win the NFC has a ton of juice. But if you shop around enough, you can get close to eliminating juice. Like in other words, it's possible if you grab the best number on every team to build a futures portfolio with like little to no vig. So that's one reason I think the futures market is beatable. Also, it's often stale. News broke that Tom Brady was going to Tampa, and it takes the books, half hour to move the market. Not the case on individual games. If Tom Brady was ruled out for a Sunday game, you'd have like 1 minute before you'd have to bet. But really, the futures market is just fun, and that's what I want to emphasize today. Like, we're not here to really grind hard today. It's fun. You can put down a little to try to win a lot. You can get 40-1 shots, 50-1 shots. You can get a sweat for the whole year. You can take hedging opportunities if you get off to a good start. Just good old-fashioned fun. So just want to talk about the futures markets that are up on legal U.S. books right now. And we'll be mostly talking about long shots because I think they're more fun. In other words, bets that are unlikely to win. It doesn't mean they're not plus EV, but they're still unlikely to win. But when we're right, the payoff is large. So let's start with MVP, I think, because Evan mentioned Josh Allen MVP odds on the last show. It's been 7 straight years, Evan, a quarterback has been awarded the MVP. 12 out of the last 13 years, it's been a quarterback. Only Adrian Peterson in 2012 for the Vikings was a non-QB over the last 13 years. He had to run for almost 2,100 yards. Minnesota went 10-6 for him to win the MVP. The favorite is Patrick Mahomes, around 4-1. Lamar Jackson is around 6-1. You can get, let's talk about the ultra long shot first. The longest shot that I think is actually in play is Ezekiel Elliott at 100-1 on DraftKings. And I know I just talked about how often quarterbacks win. I think if Ezekiel Elliott can get to 2,000 yards and the Dallas Cowboys win 12 games and he scores 15 plus touchdowns, he's at least in play. You would need bad years from Patrick Mahomes. You would need bad year from Lamar Jackson and stuff like that. But I think 100-1 on this offense and having Zeke be the one that is the beneficiary of the most touchdowns, I think makes some sense. I know you've been heavy on only betting quarterbacks. Evan, do you see any merit in Zeke at 100-1?
I mean, I don't think it's crazy. Do you know what Dak Prescott is, though? I mean, I would rather bet him at 40-1, and his odds are probably
Dak is
shorter than that.
22-1 on DraftKings right now is Dak Prescott. Yeah.
So I think the debate is whether you would bet Dak Prescott 22-1 or Ezekiel Elliott 100-1. Obviously, the payout is much bigger with Zeke Elliott, but I think at the end of the day, I'd probably still take Dak Prescott at 22-1 rather than betting Ezekiel Elliott, just because I don't think. Look, there is a scenario that you kind of conceived of. Let's say he runs for 2,000 yards, something like that, scores 20 touchdowns. Then I think it could potentially come into play. But I think that it's just a lot. Like, I love the Cowboys passing game. I love the offense in general. I think that the defense is not going to be as good from a pass defense perspective. They should be better in terms of pass rush, but their secondary is pretty questionable right now. And I think that they're going to still give up points, and they're going to have to score. And the best way to do that is Dak Prescott throwing to Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and 2020 breakout tight end Blake Jarwin.
Yeah. We haven't spent a lot of time on the show talking about Ezekiel Elliott yet this year because not a lot has changed in his outlook. I believe you have him third in your top 150 behind only CMC and Barkley. Do you think that Tony Pollard eats into more of Zeke's workload at all this year, or do you think Zeke is pretty safe there as a top 3 pick?
Maybe a little bit. Travis Frederick retiring.
Unexpectedly,
Yeah, unexpectedly. I think he's not even 30 yet. That was a blow too, just to their interior running. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do at center. Maybe trot out Joe Looney. Joe Looney started during that year that Travis Frederick missed due to an illness, and just wasn't that good. So that was a big loss for their run blocking.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some quarterbacks that I think are more in play, and obviously the odds reflect the quarterback position. The first one is the one that you mentioned last week, Josh Allen. You mentioned that maybe you get 80-1. If you shop around, you can still get 70-1. Josh Allen is 50-1 on DraftKings. And by the way, DraftKings uses Canby lines, which if you guys are in a regulated state, Canby has a lot of the sports books. They're generating the odds for a lot of the regulated sports books right now. But anyways, Josh Allen 50-1 on DraftKings, 50-1 on FanDuel, but 70-1 on PointsBet in New Jersey and 66-1 at MGM Books. So, just a little bit of shopping can make a big difference there. But yeah, we outlined last week paths to Josh Allen winning the MVP. 70-1 on PointsBet, I think, is very, very, very strong. Let's reiterate for the people why Josh Allen has a path to an MVP season, Evan.
Well, you mentioned earlier that, these awards typically are won by quarterbacks, okay? And they're almost always won by players on good teams. So if we can just narrow it down to quarterbacks on teams that we believe are going to be good, and I think that, then we're down to or at least have a chance to be good. I think we're down to 16 quarterbacks,
Yeah.
A pool of 14 to 18 quarterbacks. And then we really have, a good foundation of where to bet from. And Josh Allen's going to be toward the, one of the longest shots of all of them. And he's in one of the best positions of all of them. Now, of course, we question him, as a passer. There's every reason to. He's under 7 yards per attempt in his career. I think he's gotten, incrementally better. And I think that the acquisition of Stephon Diggs is going to help him a lot, because Stephon Diggs can make highlight reel catches. He can create a ton of separation and just make life kind of easy on Josh Allen. Josh Allen's can 10 rushing touchdowns is in his range of potential outcomes for sure. And I think that, with Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, a ton of continuity, which in the offense, which can definitely come in handy in a year where we're not going to have off-season workouts. Dawson Knox entering his second year, throwing for 28 and running for 10 or 12. I mean, that and the Bills go 11-5 or 12-4 or something. That would put Josh Allen to the forefront of the MVP race. I don't care what you thought about him coming out of Wyoming. I don't care, if he has another, year where he has 5 memes of him, making blooper plays out there, and, draft Twitter that, is still holding on to their preconceived biases, is still, pushing out there so everybody can see. But he is going to be at the forefront of the MVP race, regardless of what you think about him. And so I think that at 70-1, with the continuity, bringing back the same OC, the organization is really, the organization, I have some issues with the way that they just sign Panthers players. It's, that's all they do.
Yeah.
But it's working for them, and Tom Brady out of the division. The Dolphins I think they'll be better, but they're certainly beatable. The Jets are just, a rudderless ship. So, and the Patriots Vegas win total is I think it was 11 last year. It's down to 9. That's a really big drop. We obviously know the reasons for that. The Bills have a chance to win a lot of games, and Josh Allen, I think, has a chance to put up some big-time stats. And he also is a player who's capable of making highlight reel plays. These highlight plays stick out in our mind and can definitely influence voters, I think, at the end of the year.
Yeah. 2 things. First, Evan mentioned winning teams. Yeah, I think you can narrow it down even more. You're going to need to have the quarterback of a team that wins 11 or more games. I didn't look at the data, but I would be shocked if there's any MVPs who won 8 or 9 or even 10 games. You need to win 11, 12, 13, 14 games at least to be eligible, I think, to be likely to win this award. And then also, you don't want excuses to be made. So I can't vote for Tom Brady because Belichick, it's all Belichick. Or I can't vote for Brady this year in Tampa because he has Godwin and Evans. Of course, they're making him look better. If the Bills do win 12 or 13 games, it's going to be a lot on Josh Allen. Wanted to mention Kyler Murray too, and I'm not sure I'm on this one. I think Evan's higher on Kyler Murray than I am a little bit, although I really do like Kyler Murray for sure, but he's down to 25-1 almost across the board in every book is Kyler Murray, and 25-1 is right in the same range where you can get guys like Dak Prescott, where you can get guys like, I think Russ Wilson's a little bit better than that. I'll pull it up in a second. But we do know that Kyler Murray has a significant chance to make a second year leap. Tell the people where we're at on Kyler Murray. Yeah, he's 25-1 on DraftKings. Carson Wentz also 25-1. Dak Prescott 22-1. And then you get guys like, Russell Wilson's actually 6-1. But Aaron Rodgers 20-1. Drew Brees 20-1.
Yeah, I like the Kyler bet better than Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. I was hoping that he would be around like 40-1. And I bet you if that DeAndre Hopkins trade had not happened until the draft, which a lot of trades typically just happen during the draft. And, it happens like at the start of free agency instead. And we were looking at it right now. I bet we would like it at, 40 or 50-1, even without DeAndre Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
But now that he's got DeAndre Hopkins, his odds shortened. And I think he's not as great of a value. With that said, again, I would take him over Breeze and Aaron Rodgers at their respective prices. And, I don't think he's a bad bet at all. Just make sure you pair him up with Josh Allen.
Okay, let's move to something that I think probably has a little bit more value because the market just doesn't really know what it's doing, and that's Defensive Player of the Year. The favorite is Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, 2-time, I believe, Defensive Player of the Year. He's around 7-1 in most markets. There's 2 long shots that stood out to me. And yeah, I think, Nick Bosa and JJ Watt and TJ Watt, they're all around 10-1, 12-1. Those are fine. I think that there's 2 longer shots that stuck out to me. The first one is Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett is only 33-1 on DraftKings, but he's 50-1 on MGM. Shaq Barrett had 19.5 sacks last season. I know some people say he's a one-year wonder. He's not going to duplicate that. Dude's only 27 years old. This defense in Tampa is extremely, extremely talented. And I think one of the reasons that Shaq Barrett only got 2 votes for Defensive Player of the Year last year is because Tampa Bay's reputation among writers who vote for this, by the way, is like AP journalists. Tampa Bay had a really bad reputation on defense, even if they were good in yards per play, even if they were good in advanced metrics. This year, I think with Tom Brady not turning the ball over, people are going to start giving the credit they deserve, and people are going to recognize that Shaq Barrett had 19.5 sacks last year. If he gets anywhere close to that again, he has to be in play. So 50-1 to me is egregious. Do you think, though, Evan, that Shaq Barrett's 2019 campaign was a one-year wonder?
I knew he was good in Denver, and he just didn't get a lot of playing time there because they couldn't figure out how to get him on the field, especially at the end there when they had drafted Bradley Chubb, number 4 overall. They had Von Miller. Before that, they had DeMarcus Ware. They tried to force it with Shane Ray, who Elway drafted in the first round. It was kind of like a politics game there. Shane Ray at times would play ahead of Shaq Barrett, even though Shaq Barrett was better than him in Denver, just because Shaq Barrett was undrafted. And Shane Ray was a first-round pick, and they were trying to make that work. Shane Ray now is like out of the league. But no, I think it's when you first look at it, it looks kind of like a chase pick. But I think that when you break it down more, it's not as much of a chase pick. First of all, he's a long shot. He's 50-1 at MGM. And one of the reasons I think that he had so much success was because he played on a very talented line that allowed him to stay singled up at all times. They didn't even have Jason Pierre-Paul until the last 8 or 10 games. And they're bringing back Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. So I think that Shaq Barrett is going to continue. Yeah, he doesn't have to get 19.5 sacks again. He could get 11 and 6 forced fumbles and be right back in the mix on what I think that you're exactly right about is going to be a defense that I still don't think that people realize how good they were last year. You remember they were shut down against the run, and then they started for all year, and then they started to become good against the pass too. Like you couldn't really pick on them. And I think that, Shaq Barrett is like the premier pass rusher at this stage of their respective careers on that Tampa Bay defensive line. The defense is going to get more credit this year because Tom Brady is not going to be giving the ball to the other team 35 times. He probably won't give it to the other team 10 times all year. So that's going to really help and pay dividends for the defense.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. And I think sometimes there's lag with these writers' votes, right? Like the writers don't realize that Shaq Barrett had this kind of year. They can't vote for a one-year wonder, but if he does it again, then some of these writers are like, oh, okay, well now he needs to be more in consideration. The other guy that I have on my list for Defensive Player of the Year is Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White was 33-1 on DraftKings, but again on MGM 40-1. Tre'Davious White, I think, is one of the best corners in the league. We saw corners don't typically win this award very often, but Stephon Gilmore did win it last year. Tre'Davious White 16th among 132 qualifying corners in PFF grades last year, 6 interceptions, 12 in his first 3 NFL seasons. Buffalo, I think, will again have one of the best defenses, better defenses in the league in terms of yards per play allowed and advanced metrics. We know they get Miami twice, as you mentioned, the Jets twice, they get Stidham twice, if Stidham ends up starting. Do you think Tre'Davious White has a big enough name to win this award? Can he put up enough stats to win this award? And overall, what do you think of Buffalo's defense?
Yeah, and I think that it's worth pointing out that these are not necessarily like our opinions or our suggestions for who we think should win Rookie of the Year or MVP or Defensive Player of the Year. It's critical when you're trying to do these predictions or trying to prognosticate these things that you try to put yourself in the minds of the voters. I think that there's like a big disconnect. Like when people talk about MVPs or who's going to win MVP or who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year on Twitter, like it causes like a big storm because people think that that's your opinion when you're really you're trying to put yourself in the mind of the writers that are going to vote on these awards. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important, and you pointed it out there with Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White, I mean, it's kind of the same rationale as with Josh Allen to some extent. Yes, I think he has become a big enough name. He travels with number one receivers. That's like a feather in his cap as to being able to win an award like this. And you're getting him at pretty long odds, 40-1. He plays a premium position. I think that every year, especially Pro Football Focus, has shined a light on how pass coverage has potentially become more critical than pass rush when it comes to defensive effectiveness and defensive carryover. And Tre'Davious White is the best player in one of the best secondaries in the league. I absolutely, with another great year and, some more on-ball production, you got to get interceptions. The writers love interceptions. Yeah. But I think if he can pick off, 4, 5, 6 of them, he'd put himself in great position.
Okay, let's go to a market that isn't everywhere, but FanDuel and PointsBet both have it. That's Comeback Player of the Year. Last year, the award went to Ryan Tannehill, but typically it's a star who got injured. Andrew Luck in 2018, Jordy Nelson 2016, Keenan Allen won in 2017, but like Rob Gronkowski has won it, Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Brady, his first year back after the ACL, won it. The heavy favorite, only plus 250 on FanDuel right now, is Ben Roethlisberger. And we've talked plenty. We actually haven't talked maybe enough about Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger's 38 years old, says he's ready to throw, says he's fine. I didn't check your top 150 to see where or if Ben Roethlisberger's in it. But let's just talk about Ben for a second, because based on this market, which is not a very liquid market, I wouldn't put too much stock in it, but they are assuming that Big Ben will come back and have a typically strong Big Ben year without Antonio Brown. What do you think about Big Ben this year and at plus 250 on FanDuel to win this award?
Yeah, we did talk about them a little bit, the Steelers in general, a little bit in terms of being like a buy low offense, because if you look at where people are getting drafted in this offense at this point, Juju is down, at least a round from where he was going at this time last year. Deontay Johnson was barely on the radar at this time last year, even as a guy that the Steelers took in the third round, and they're considering their history of wide receiver production, their success in the draft, and he had an outstanding rookie season that kind of flew under the radar because he was playing with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. And now they signed Eric Ebron, who, look, he's got his faults, but he can do certain things, and these certain things contribute well to the production of a passing game. And the dude he scored a lot of touchdowns over the last 2 years. He's been really, really efficient in the red zone. They are bringing back Vance McDonald as their number 2 tight end, and James Washington. He got better in his second year. We can say that at very least. And James Conner is like free. Like, I'm in a dynasty league right now, dynasty startup. It's like the 12th round, and James Conner has not been drafted yet. Now, there was a report that the Steelers are going to draft another running back. We'll see. But I think the Steelers are going to be good, number one, as long as Ben stays healthy. I mean, that's the biggest thing in all this, I think. Like, there's no question he's going to be successful if he's healthy. The defense was, all of a sudden become the juggernaut that they should have been for the last 5 years last season. And I think they're going to be good, and that helps his comeback player of the year chance. It's just going to come down to whether he stays healthy. I totally get why he is the going away favorite there.
Yeah, the reason why I don't think that I would bet Big Ben at plus 250 is because the competition for this award this year is stiff, right? AJ Green is coming back from an injury, missed the whole year. JJ Watt missed a ton of time. Matthew Stafford missed a ton of time. All those guys, I think, are in play to outplay Big Ben this year. Like, I don't think it's out of the range for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford was having a really good year before he went down. I don't think it's crazy for Matthew Stafford to outplay Ben Roethlisberger this year, do you?
No, I'm not sure the Lions are going to be good. Like,
Right.
Can the Lions be good? You mentioned Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, that's the best long shot, I think.
Dude, yeah. I mean, that's a guy that no one is talking about right now.
Yeah, so Deshaun Jackson is 33-1 to win the Comeback Player of the Year award. You know, I think the Eagles know at this point they can't run him out there for 80 or even 70% of the snaps, but on passing plays and it's specifically on deep balls, I mean, he's going to be out there. He only played one full game last year, did Deshaun Jackson, and he went 8-154-2 against the Redskins. He is 33 years old, but, you know, I think that was the best long shot. I'd prefer a little bit longer odds, but 33-1 seems okay on Deshaun Jackson to win the Comeback Player of the Year. Do you have Deshaun Jackson in the top 150?
Yes, he is like in the 120s somewhere.
Okay.
I watched Silver Linings Playbook last night.
Oh, and I hated that. So corny.
I'd never seen it before. It's pretty corny, but Deshaun Jackson, his jersey plays a leading role in that movie.
Yeah, so corny. All right, let's move to some division winners. And I thought mainly the most interesting stuff was in the AFC. Let's start with the AFC West, where obviously the Chiefs are the heavy favorite, and that's going to create some value on the long shots if you think the Chiefs will regress. And also, a lot of these markets, you know, they should be factoring in quarterback injuries, but they don't always do so because the public just, you know, it's hard for them to see games without Patrick Mahomes. But if you were building a model that was to simulate the whole season, a certain percentage of the time Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. So from a talent perspective, I think the Los Angeles Chargers, both on offense and defense, obviously they have a question at quarterback with Tyrod right now, but from just raw skill players on defense and on offense, I mean, man, 10-1 to win the division, 50-1 to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings. And again, it's worth shopping. Chargers are 50-1 to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings, but only 34-1 on FanDuel. But yeah, I think that the Chargers, just if you were just basing on talent, man, the Chargers have better than 10-1 to win the division talent. Do you see any scenarios, though, where Patrick Mahomes stays healthy and the Chiefs don't win this division?
I mean, yeah, it's just low probability, you know. What I worry about with the Chargers is them becoming sort of like the Bears of the West, where they are carried by their defense. They can't, you know, they kind of struggle to score points. I mean, their offensive line still isn't very good. I mean, I like how they've improved the right side of their offensive line. They picked up Brian Bulaga. They picked up Trey Turner. Still worry about the left side. I worry about Tyrod. I mean, I think that they can – I don't know. I don't love betting on teams that I think that might be carried by their defense and not score a lot of points.
Yep.
You know, that's like the Bears trap. I mean, I want to see what their entire schedule looks like. I don't know. I'm just kind of on the fence about the Chargers. You know, I can definitely talk myself into them because their defense is legit so loaded on paper. And we talked about it early on an earlier podcast, how I think last year it was just the starting lineup looked great. And then, you know, you lose 3 or 4 of those guys and all of a sudden it's not as great. But now I think they have legitimate depth. They had a lot of guys that had to step up and play last year because other guys got hurt. I mean, they go 4 corners deep, you know. They've got a lot of talent they have a lot more talent on their interior defensive line, I think. But yeah, I worry about how many points they're going to score.
Yeah. I will say, I think the AFC West is, I mean, actually pretty good. I mean, I think the Broncos are underrated from offensive line perspective, from defense perspective, and if they can get reasonable quarterback play, I think the Broncos are pretty good. I think the Chargers I mentioned are really good. And then the Raiders, you know, I don't think are very good, but you know, we'll see.
They're not like a gimme win, you know. The Raiders are not like a gimme win like they used to be.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is I don't think the Chiefs are just going to like walk to 13 wins easily, I guess is kind of my point. Okay, you want to talk super long shot. The Cincinnati Bengals, like you don't see these odds to win a division ever. because there's only 4 teams in the division, obviously. 28-1 on FanDuel are the Bengals to win the AFC North. Obviously, it's extremely unlikely, but I don't think that it's 28-1 that the Bengals win this division. They have Lamar Jackson division. They have Ben Roethlisberger division. They have Baker Mayfield in the division. But the Bengals, with presumably Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon, AJ Green, John Ross, Tyler Boyd, Auden Tate, you've mentioned they're getting Jonah Williams back. I think their offensive line can be better, if not reasonable. I mean, I don't think they're win the division often, but maybe they win it 1 out of 20 seasons if you simulate the season 20 times, or 1 out of 15. But I don't think it's 28-1. How do you see the Bengals season going this year? And as you're optimistic as I am, because I was actually optimistic about them last year too, and then I could blame injuries for saying that I was wrong, but really they probably weren't going to be good no matter what.
Yeah, I think they just kind of. I mean, you remember the way that Zach Taylor called plays in some games. Like, it was just like he wanted to get out of there, especially in road games. Like, he just wanted to leave. So I'm totally with you. 28-1 is insane. They're just like implied odds just for being a team among 4 in the division should be 4-1.
Yeah.
So they're 28-1. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that they're one of the best buy low like fantasy teams. You know, hitting like AJ Green, hitting Tyler Boyd, hitting I think even John Ross is going to be a good late round pick this year. Joe Mixon is a guy that still kind of divides people, and I mean, he's been a top 12 fantasy back in consecutive seasons, and he's been fantastic considering, you know, relative to his situation. They're bringing back Auden Tate. And, you know, they're getting back Jonah Williams, their first-round pick. It's like they're going to have 2 first-round picks this year, and their first-round pick this year is going to be Joe Burrow. Now, we talk about, like, continuity, and they're going to have a new quarterback with no off-season workouts.
Yeah.
But, man, I think Joe Burrow, like, could be really, really good. And they're dropping him into a situation that's pretty darn good, too, from an offensive skill position player standpoint. And they do have continuity in the coaching staff. You know, it's going to be the second year of Zach Taylor. It's going to be the second year of their defensive coaching staff. And, I mean, yeah, I think that none of these other teams in the AFC North, I mean, the Ravens look really good. But I think that in the AFC North, these other teams, I think, are beatable. And then you just got to catch some breaks and catch some luck to be able to overcome the Ravens. I mean, maybe Lamar Jackson gets hurt. You know, obviously we're not rooting for that, but that's in play. He runs more than any other quarterback in the league. Ben Roethlisberger, he's not a very good bet to stay healthy. And then, you know, the Browns, like, who knows what we're going to get. That's a team that has very little continuity in the coaching staff. So, yeah, I mean, I think that 28-1, it's just like you just kind of blind bet it.
Yeah. The implied probability on 28-1 is 3.4%. So basically, if you were just thinking logically, do you think the Bengals win the division more than 3.4% of the time? Yeah. I mean, Bengals, man. Okay. Last one. I know we spent a lot of time on the Bills already, but I think it's an interesting question. Just who is better on paper, the Bills or the Patriots? And I think it's the Bills, but you can get the Bills plus 165 to win the AFC East on MGM. You get the Bills plus 160 on DraftKings, on FanDuel, and on PointsBet. Bills are plus 120 to win the division. So I think, you know, from coaching, obviously, New England has a huge advantage. But just from a player perspective right now on the rosters, and I understand New England's defense is still very good, but I think on both sides of the ball, like, I think it's close between the Bills defense and the Patriots defense. And on offense, I mean, the Bills just have a ton more talent, in my opinion. They've added Steph Diggs. You know, I think they let Ed Oliver spread his wings in year 2. They dumped Frank Gore, which I think helps. They let Dawson Knox run wild a little bit. So I actually like, on paper, the Bills' talent better than New England, and you can get plus 165. So I don't know, maybe that's a bad take, but I think you're paying a lot. When you bet New England, you're paying a lot for Belichick. That's just the bottom line. So what do you think about how the Bills versus Patriots scenario goes this year?
I mean, I just think the Bills are clearly above the Patriots. The Bills got a really good defense too. They have not given up points for, you know, multiple years running under the Sean McDermott regime. And I don't see any reason to think that their defense would be any worse than it was last season. And I think that upgrading from Isaiah McKenzie and Duke Williams to Stephon Diggs is, you know, about as big of an upgrade at any position in the NFL that you could even imagine. So, Yeah, I mean, I think that Stephon Diggs is worth like a half win, and maybe even a full win if he has a great year. And I mean, I think that the Bills are just I think that they're a great bet at anything plus 165, plus 160. Yeah, I mean, I think that they should be the favorites to win the division.
Yeah, and I think people are waiting for the other shoe to drop at quarterback, but maybe they just go in with Stidham. And, we've talked plenty about Stidham. You can go back to the last episode and you can hear our takes on Stidham. I think Stidham has a chance, but for sure would rather have Josh Allen. So, yeah, it's just interesting to me that the market still thinks that normally like the market overreacts to stuff like that. Like Tom Brady leaves, let's move New England to, plus 400 or something, but the market didn't, I don't think, overreact. I actually think they underreacted here, but we'll see. Okay, couple long shots to win the Super Bowl odds. And these are pretty painted everywhere because this is a very popular market, so it's pretty liquid. So most books have around the same number. The Titans are 30-1 and the Cardinals are 50-1. I'm a little surprised the Titans are 30-1 considering how relatively close they got last year. I mean, they were up on the Chiefs in the playoffs, and they've retained so much continuity. They retained Derrick Henry. They retained Ryan Tannehill. I mean, they've done a lot to keep the band together. Tennessee at 30-1. Does that interest you at all, Evan?
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about a team that has maintained continuity. The Titans have maintained continuity more than almost any team. I mean, they went out of their way to do so. They're going to bring back essentially the same receiver core. I think that AJ Brown is only going to get better. And my goodness, what is AJ Brown's ceiling? I think that he can be, a top 5 receiver in the league. They signed Ryan Tannehill to that controversial yet multi-year contract, slapped Derrick Henry with the franchise tag. They're bringing back Vrabel and Arthur Smith and they're almost their entire defense. So I think that they are prepared to kind of weather this no offseason workout storm. I think that when you look at the division, the Jags, I think they're not going to be good. I think that the Colts and the Titans. Well, I think that the Colts are dangerous, but I think that the Texans could take a significant step back this year. So, yeah, I mean, I like the Titans, and I think that they've gotten a lot of crap for some of the moves that they've made, but they have like a formula that has been successful. They've won at least 9 games in 4 straight years, and yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, they're going to be competing for the AFC South division. And, what happens when you just get into the tournament and crazy things can happen. They almost made the Super Bowl last year. And then the Cardinals, I think, are a great, great Super Bowl long shot for all the reasons that we talked about with regard to Kyler Murray. They're doing the same thing that the Bills are. They're pulling out Jameer Byrd and pulling out Keyshawn Johnson and inserting DeAndre Hopkins. That's an incredible upgrade. I think and they also have coaching staff continuity. 2nd year of Cliff Kingsbury. The defense is coming back. And, they've got Chandler Jones. They added a bunch of kind of little helpful pieces, like good role players in free agency. And they had an elite running game last year, number 2 in rushing DVOA offense. And this year, I think their passing game can take a really big step forward.
One thing to think about in these Super Bowl bets is that the path to the Super Bowl, I think, is much easier through the NFC, right? Because in the AFC, you're going to have to go through Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. In the NFC, San Francisco's the favorite. They're certainly beatable, I think. The Saints are very good. But then you get into the Eagles and the Bucks and the Cowboys and the Seahawks, I think a long shot from the NFC is more likely than the AFC. So to get the Cardinals at 50-1 to win the Super Bowl is certainly interesting. And yeah, on the Titans, I actually think the Titans are better and have a far higher floor than the Colts. And you can get slightly better odds to win the AFC South right now on the Titans than you can the Colts. You can probably, I don't have it in front of me here, but I think you can get plus 160, plus 170 on the Tennessee Titans to win the AFC South, which I think is interesting if you think that the Titans are better than the Colts, like I do. So yeah, just some fun bets to talk about. I do want to, before we get out of here, I do want to talk about some free agent news, some smaller wide receiver stuff that we didn't, that happened after our show last Thursday. First one, soon after the show last week, Robbie Anderson signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. It was interesting to me because for a few reasons. You didn't think that the Panthers were in the market for wide receiver help. They already had DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. You didn't think that Robbie Anderson was really a great fit with the way Teddy Bridgewater likes to play. That said, Robbie Anderson obviously knows Matt Rule, and Matt Rule is showing great loyalty to his Temple players, but it's a pretty good deal for the Panthers, I think, just from a straight monetary perspective. What did you think about Robbie Anderson finally signing with the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's a great spot for Robbie Anderson's fantasy value necessarily. I still think he's going to be a guy that gives us, 2 or 3 big games all year and then frustrates us the rest of the season. And I mean, he was the number 1 essentially with the Jets the past few seasons. Now he's going to be like number 3 or 4 option. What I am intrigued is about just how he can help the offense just by creating space on the field, and how he can be used in tandem with these other big-time playmakers, Christian McCaffrey, Ian Thomas, who I think is a breakout candidate. I just took him in the 11th round of a dynasty startup league. And then DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, under the guidance of Joe Brady, who was just incredibly impressive as a passing game designer and offensive overseer at LSU. And look, when we think of Teddy Bridgewater, I think that we generally think of a low ADOT game manager. But when you put this much weaponry around him, I mean, I think that things start to get pretty interesting. And then you look at their defense. I mean, I think this is going to be a team that loses a lot of games like 34-24 and, averages around 23, 25 points per game. And Teddy Bridgewater, I think, to me, no longer is an afterthought in fantasy. I think that he might be a guy that we're looking at a little bit in DFS, depending on his price, especially when they're going up against teams like the Falcons. The one concern is that, are they going to be able to stop the run? I generally want my offenses to be able to play on teams that can stop the run a little bit, and where it's just not like an avalanche, because it was an avalanche last year, and that would just that can limit your offensive number of plays that you run. When you're just you can't stop the run. The clock keeps ticking on you, and you're just giving up, 5, 6, 7 yards a pop. So that's the one concern. But man, I think on paper right now, I think they're going to be able to score points.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing about DFS salaries early in the season is that they often correlate heavily to ADPs and season long. So if Teddy Bridgewater isn't going in drafts, or he's going in like the 20th round or something, he'll be very cheap in DFS to start the season. And that does intrigue me as well. Dude has some serious weaponry to work with right now. And as Evan mentioned, could be one of the league's worst defenses. Speaking of the Panthers, old friend of the Panthers, Devin Funchess, signed a 1-year, $2.5 million deal with Green Bay. This is stone number 3 receiver money. Like, I don't even think this is money that suggests they want him to compete with Allen Lazard. I think this is like, can you be our number 3? Can you beat out Marquez Valdez-Scantling and be our number 3? So how does Funchess signing with Green Bay shake up for you in terms of Allen Lazard and in terms of what you expect Green Bay to do in the draft?
Yeah, I don't know. My first thought was that he is going to be competition for Allen Lazard because they kind of have similar games a little bit. Yeah, I mean, not big separation receivers, big receivers though. And, but the thing is that Allen Lazard has such a big step up, or a big step forward on Devin Funchess because of that relationship, that on-field relationship and off-field relationship that he formed with Aaron Rodgers this past year. And Devin Funchess is going to be new to the system, and he has not been, a guy who, I mean, it didn't click immediately for him in Carolina. It didn't click at all for him in Indianapolis. He did get hurt, but, you could definitely envision a scenario where it just doesn't click for him in Green Bay. So he's not going to be in the top 150. Allen Lazard will be. I think I had him around wide receiver 50 the last time that I did it. So I don't know. I'm not too excited about Devin Funchess in Green Bay.
No, I think you can project. Well, I don't know. You're the mock draft master, but I think the Eagles and the Packers have to be 2 of the likeliest teams to take wide receivers
that too
in the first round. And I would be excited about both of those landing spots. I mean, I don't know a ton. You know way more than me about the talent in this wide receiver class. We'll get one of these guys that everybody is like frothing over to Philly or to Green Bay, and that would be exciting, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Last thing we're going to hit on today is a very small signing, but at least from a dynasty perspective, I'm really curious how Kansas City is going to play this out with Sammy Watkins. They just re-signed Demarcus Robinson to a 1-year, $2.3 million deal. rumors continue to circulate that they'll be moving on from Sammy Watkins in some way, or he'll take a pay cut, or he'll retire. But we haven't heard anything about it recently. He's set to cost them $14 million this year. They're already up against the cap. I guess the reason that I'm asking all this about Demarcus Robinson, about Sammy Watkins, is because how you value Mecole Hardman for this year in best ball or in dynasty. I need to know, is Demarcus Robinson going to continue to steal snaps from him? Is Sammy Watkins going to be there? So what do you think about what is going on in Kansas City's wideouts right now?
Yeah, I think that we saw it last year. Mecole Hardman was the backup to Tyreek Hill, and like Byron Pringle was the backup to, I don't know, Sammy Watkins, or it was like they had like specific kind of positions within the offense that they adhered to. So, but I mean, like they have to figure out ways to get the ball, to get Mecole Hardman on the field more, because he is just incredibly, incredibly explosive. And so, yeah, he's one of the toughest guys to rank right now, because you have to sort of come up with, a reasonable projection for what is going to happen with Sammy Watkins. Now we have Demarcus Robinson back, which, didn't happen until, yesterday. So, so that just makes it a little bit more crowded. I mean, Demarcus Robinson's deal, like he could get cut, but
yeah,
he's probably not gonna though, because he knows the offense so well and he plays a defined role. It's just not like a high production role within the offense. So I don't know. Mecole Hardman is a guy that's really tough to rank, and I think that we will know more about the draft. But I mean, if you're doing best balls today, I would start looking at him like in the 8th or 9th round probably, and sometimes he might even go off the board before then.
Yeah, I think we'll know Sammy Watkins' deal by the draft. I believe that's the deadline for the Chiefs to make a decision on Sammy Watkins without it affecting their cap situation. So we should have news pretty soon here. All right, as I said, our next 3 podcasts will be focused on the draft. Also, looking forward to an interview I'm doing later this week with Andrew Brandt, former vice president of the Packers. If you guys have any questions for Andrew Brandt about running a team, about the cocoon, about anything like that, send them to me on Twitter at Adam Levitan. Should be good. Should be fun. I don't know if Andrew Brandt is prepared for team sex type questions, but you guys can send them to me, and I'll decide if they can be asked or not. All right. For Evan, for producer Luke, for Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.